Hey, what's going on? My name is Chris Phillips here as always with my co-host Adam Pelham, and we are talking about the way that leaders lead. Today, part 2 of this podcast, Adam, we're going to be talking about the 5 ways that leaders can lead in healthy ways. You up for it?
I'm up for it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Dropping the beats on the 1-2s as always. Adam Pelham, come on, man. Little remix on the location. If you're watching online today, we little scene change.
Little scene change.
Come on, let's
Took a field trip.
Took a field trip right next to the other place. And hey, last time on the podcast, we talked about how leaders lead in unhealthy ways. We mentioned to you that we would also follow up with this, that we're going to talk about in the retrospect of that. Let's see how leaders can not lead in unhealthy ways, but lead in healthy ways. Yeah. Adam, I don't know about you. Healthy leadership styles are always a benefit to me.
Yeah.
I think to those around us. And so as we're trying to elevate the leadership of everyone else around us, the best way we're going to do that is to lead out in healthy ways. And so last time we talked about 5 ways that you can lead in unhealthy ways. If you're remembering those 5, we talked about insecurity and fear leading out of that. We talked about leading with a lack of self-awareness. We talked about leading with a pressure to perform and how that impacts leadership. We talked about the lack of accountability and how you can lead with a lack of accountability in place. And then the 5th piece was being resistant to change. Man, those are 5 unhealthy ways to lead as a leader. But on the reverse side of that, if you can take care of some of those things, there are 5 ways, Adam, that you can lead as a healthy leader. And that's what we want to kind of pour into today, leading in a healthy way. 5 ways that you can do that. So look, we're going to dig in. First way, if you're leading out of insecurity and fear in an unhealthy way, then if you're wanting to lead in a healthy way, the number one way that you can lead in a healthy way would be then to be confident in your abilities. Adam, you like confident?
I love confidence.
Confidence is good?
Yeah,
Who's the most confident person you know?
Personally or like,
both.
Oh man.
Both personally and...
You're pretty confident as far as people I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I'll take it. Sometimes that could be bad, but
famous, I think of like, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, some of like,
LeBron.
Like, you know what you know.
Acuna.
And Acuna's pretty confident.
Yeah, right now he's a real confident.
Shout out Braves. Best record in Major League Baseball.
Here we go.
We're good.
So leading out in confident ways, confident in your abilities. Now, on the flip side of this, you have to have humility. You got to understand where your confidence comes from.
For sure.
Right? So when we're talking about leading in confident ways, secure leaders are confident in their abilities, and they're also comfortable in their own strengths and, by the way, weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like leading confidently, I can be confident in the weaknesses that God's given me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I remove those or forget about those, but I can lead out and knowing my own strengths and weaknesses. And when you're confident in your abilities, I think one of the best things is you're open to feedback. You're open to feedback. You trust kind of your team members to give you feedback in that type of way. You embraced collaboration and empowerment in that way when you're confident in your abilities, because you know exactly who God's made you to be. So you're going, okay, I can lead confidently in this way because I am okay knowing who God made me to be, how he wired me. I recognize my weaknesses, which then, by the way, I can actually ask other people for feedback, and I can trust that, like, all right, hey, this is not going to wreck me when they tell me something negatively. How does that? How do you lead out in a confident way?
Yeah, the big thing I think is what you said just a second ago with trust. If I'm more confident in myself, I can also trust my teammates, my coworkers, whoever. Whereas if I'm insecure in my own ways, then I'm not going to trust other people, whether people that I'm leading or leading with, to do some of the things that, it goes back to relinquishing some of the duties that you have too, and letting some of that go and empowering other people to do that. If I'm more confident in what God's called me to do, then I'm also going to trust my teammates to do things and not have to be like, I need to look over this or oversee this all the time, right? I think trust is huge. It goes hand in hand.
Even in my vocation as a full-time pastor and lead pastor with the primary teaching responsibility of the church, I mean, you've got to be confident to ask people, hey, what did you think of that illustration? What did you think of this?
For sure.
This is pre and post, right? Going into the weekend that you're going to give a message, but then also evaluating afterwards, right? Hey, what did you think about this? How can I get better in that way? People that are not confident don't ask those questions, and then when they don't ask those questions, they don't get better. And it stems from the insecurity and fear. fear, which is what we talked about from the unhealthy way,
you're,
right?
You're afraid to ask because you don't want to know the
100%.
answer. Yeah.
And so the thing is like we lead in a very collaborative like way. And, thanks for the compliment with leading confidently. Yeah. I think I'm probably more confident now than I've ever been. I've been confident in a braggadocious, not very humble way before, but I'm confident in who the Lord made me. And so, stepping up. And as I was thinking of illustrations with this, man, like, imagine stepping on stage. You're getting ready to present. You're confident in who you are. You're confident in the message that God's given you to speak. You're confident in the just what you're trying to do, the mission and vision of it. Your demeanor is there. You have a clear voice. You have this assured body language, and everything is confident in your ability. And you're going to inspire and engage the audience in a way like you've never done before when you do it in that type of way. And being confident in that type of way. Second thing, we talked about lack of self-awareness was unhealthy, and so if that's one of the ways to lead unhealthy, then the second way to be a healthy leader and leading out in a healthy way is then to be really introspective, which goes into number one, right? Introspective, and you understand your own strengths, weaknesses, and emotional triggers. If you have a lack of self-awareness, you have got to spend time introspectively thinking about who you are, who God has designed you to be, and how you're going to lead out in exactly who he's designed you to be, right? Self-aware leaders are very introspective, and they super are engaged with their own understanding of their strengths, weaknesses, and the emotional triggers that come about in their life, the red flags that they have, right? So they're actively seeking feedback. They're continually learning and growing. They're adapting their leadership approach to best serve the team around them because they're being introspective, right? In that type of way. Yeah. When it comes to mind of being introspective in your strengths and weaknesses, what does the Lord bring to your mind in that?
Yeah, this is a little bit of an admission, right? I've this. I've long gone against the grain and pushed back on maybe some of the personality tests, maybe some of the Enneagrams and stuff like that. But I honestly, in the last few months, in the last really year or so, I've actually started to like soften my heart a little bit towards them and understand they have a purpose. They have a purpose.
It's not the answer, but they have a purpose.
Exactly. I think people can obviously answer them sometimes the way they want to, but I do think some of those are healthy models to get into. Now, 100%. Just because I'm a 7-wing 8 doesn't mean that that's what I get to be and just like sit in forever.
Okay.
I'm just this. And that's not, it doesn't tell the whole story of who I am, but I do think tests like that are helpful in understanding some of the awareness, some of the weaknesses, some of the strengths, some of the triggers and stuff like that. It's better than doing nothing, right? Some of those kind of tests. And so that'd be my kind of challenge for myself and others. If you have no self-awareness, doing something to try and get to know what your strengths and weaknesses are is better than just nothing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Man, no matter what it is, DISC, Insights, Myers-Briggs.
There's so many.
There's so many that are out there. Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 3D on the DISC profile. I'm an ENTJ.
I've got
all of them. And the thing is like take them and then chew the meat, spit out the bones. Yeah. Right. But be introspective in what it says. Ask someone to say, hey, do you see this in me? Because my favorite thing about all those, I remember taking the Insights Discovery Wheel. I'm a reformer on the Insight Discovery Wheel. And Libby, I had her read it, and she was like, my God, this perfectly describes who you are. And I was like, oh man. And then I read it and I was like, oh, that's not fun. And it was all the stuff of like, be careful for this because this leader does this. And I was like, man, I took, there's another one it's called Culture Index, and it's really good. It's very similar to Predictive Index. And on that one, the guy that created the Culture Index, this is a room of like alpha leaders, type A, Enneagram 3 guys all in the room. He's reading off the profiles before he knows who they are because he didn't know anybody in the room. Okay. So these are all in the room. And so he's like, hey, this guy is this, and he's calling out like, it's kind of funny because he's like, this guy has the patience of a 3-year-old, and this guy has this. And it's like, and around the room, everybody's like shot to the heart. You know? And he sits it and he goes, this guy, he said, if you look at his profile, he said the second his eyes move or blink or he becomes, out of his sleep in the morning, it feels like paddles have shocked him on the chest. And if he doesn't get up right away, he feels like he's lost the entire day. Yeah. And I thought, dang, he was talking about me.
Yeah.
And Libby was like, I don't know any better way to describe you.
Wow.
Because Libby's like, hey, on Saturday morning when we have nothing going on or whatever else, if we're not up and going and out the house by 7 a.m., I'll be like, well, I guess we're not doing anything today. And it makes her so mad.
The day is lost.
Yeah, I am. I'm like, well, I guess we're just going to hang around, you know? And it's like, and the day is gone. But it's like, it's introspective knowing about me, knowing that I have to be very self-aware of that so that I can avoid those things. Healthy leaders are very introspective and understand their strengths, weaknesses, and emotional triggers for sure.
Yeah.
The third thing is regarding a pressure to perform. So if you have that in an unhealthy way, then the healthy leader then is going to balance the pursuit of excellence. I even hate saying this. Balance the pursuit of excellence. Tough. Yeah. Number 3, if you're going to be a healthy leader, you got to balance the pursuit of excellence. Leaders who balance the pursuit of excellence, they have care for other people around them. Number 1. They recognize that long-term success depends on a motivated and engaged them and workforce around them. And then they prioritize their well-being, their growth, their job satisfaction of their entire team members. Yeah. What does this mean to you? Balancing the pursuit of excellence.
Yeah. I think we want to be excellent in everything we do, right? As leaders. Sometimes the best way to do that, I think it's that last point that you just made. Knowing your team well, knowing the well-being of your team well, maybe that is going to do a little staff retreat. It's going to go out for a lunch, whatever, like taking a pause from maybe some of the work mode and breathe some life back into your team members. Stuff like that is going to make you go further faster, because the unhealthy thing that I want to always do is just look at performance, look at how we can get better, those kind of things. And if you only are operating out of that system, you're going to burn out your team members, right?
Yeah, you can. I'd look at it this way: you can pursue excellence, but you realize perfection is only the Lord's.
That's good.
So it's like, okay, I can pursue the excellence. I can put. A mentor of mine one time, he said, "Hey, look, here's the deal." He said, "The effort is yours, the results are the Lord's."
I love that.
And so the effort is mine. If I look back and go, "Well, I didn't even give my best in this," then I have a problem with it, right? But the results are the Lord's, and I think that's that balance, right? Is to go, "Hey, I'm going to put the effort, energy, and resources in." But I need to make sure that no matter what happens, the results are the Lord's,
That's
right?
So good.
I tell my kids all the time when they get done with like a baseball game or whatever else, if they lost, whatever, we talk about it on the car ride home. I say, okay, there's a couple things I just want to know. Did you give your best?
Yeah.
Did you respect and honor the coaches, your other teammates, and the officials that were out there? And then were you a good teammate to everybody and encouraged other people? Did you do those 3 things? If you did those 3 things, man, then that's all you can do. If you gave your best, if you respected everybody around you, and you were a good teammate, then that's it. And encouraged everybody when you were on the field and off the field.
Man,
right?
yeah.
And that's that pursuit. It's going, hey, like you can't win every game. You can't do this. You're in the same, whatever your job field is, you can't hit every sales goal.
Right.
You can't hit every speech that you give to perfection. You can't make every business plan to perfection, all these things. You can put the effort in, you can give your best, but then remember the results are the Lord's.
That's good.
And that'll really help the team. We a lot of times we talk around here, we work hard, play hard.
Right.
And it's like, hey, we're going to work hard while we're working, and then we're going to play hard.
Yeah.
And we're going to have fun and do that. So
totally.
Healthy leaders balance the pursuit of excellence. The 4th thing that healthy leaders do is they take ownership of actions and decisions. This is in regard to the unhealthy leader that has a lack of accountability. Well, then a healthy leader then takes ownership of their action and decisions. You got to understand where the buck stops.
Yeah.
And you got to understand that if someone on your team didn't rise to the level that you wanted them to rise to, ultimately you're responsible for that.
Yeah.
And so you got to go, all right, well, this is on me. I didn't lead them. I didn't ask clarifying questions. I didn't create and help with solutions to any problems that we had in this type of way. I can't just go and just, not take ownership and accountability. You've got to take ownership and accountability. Accountable leaders take the ownership of all decisions that come their way. They foster a culture of accountability, by the way, of holding themselves and their teammates and team members responsible for their actual commitments, learning from mistakes, and then striving for continuous improvement, right? We've got to have a better culture of accountability. Yes. I feel like we just live in a culture right now that's like, oh, it's everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
Like it's just, no. Well, this person did this. It's like, at the end of the day, we got to step back and go, hey, whose role was this? Who stepped up? You either did or did not. By the way, it's okay. Just recognize it.
Right.
You'll go a lot further faster if you can recognize your failures and like admit your failures with team members. you'll go further and faster, even if you messed up royally, right? Because they're still going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you're like, hey, that's on me.
Right.
I feel like we get people that are just afraid to say that's on me.
Yeah.
And it's just no accountability that's there. And so leaders have to take ownership. You know, you got to address people in a team meeting and say, hey, I messed this one up. I didn't hit this deadline.
Right.
I didn't give you clarity on what you needed. I didn't give the right output, you know, to what was going. I didn't put the right input to get the right output for what we're going. How does this just kind of impact you, taking ownership of decisions and actions?
I think it stems a little bit what we talked about too a little bit earlier. This stems from being confident too overall in what God has called you to do. When I'm confident, not in my abilities, but where God has placed me and leading me to, I'm going to be more open to have feedback. Hey, where am I not? Where am I not tugging the line here as good as I can? Where can I get a little bit better here? That last point is so good. Striving for continuous improvement, and we say this all the time. A pastor and leader I listen to a lot says it this way too. I can't promise you perfection, but what I can promise you is progress. And we say it all the time. How can we get 1% better?
Yeah.
Having that and having that attitude around things maybe is open for discussion there too with other staff members. Hey, where was I not getting a little bit 1% better today? What can I do to help in that kind of method? If that's coming from a place of confidence in where God is calling you, then that's going to be so much better, I think.
Craig Rochelle says it, that not a whole lot of people always connect with leaders who are always right. But leaders who can admit they're in the wrong. And so that's a big thing. Accountability. Like people are not going to connect with you when you're always right. And it's always somebody else's fault. Admit your failures, admit your weaknesses, admit your shortcomings. They're there. Everybody else knows them. And by the way, if you want to know them, it goes back to that self-awareness thing. And that aspect of you have fear, this confidence and everything else. Like, hey, get introspective and ask some people, hey, where do you not lead well? Where do you make mistakes? They'll tell you. And so the last, but certainly not least, leadership component to be a healthy leader is embrace change. You know, if an unhealthy leader is resistant to change, then a healthy leader can embrace change, right? Leaders who embrace change recognize innovation, they recognize growth, they recognize that success often requires adapting to new realities, new todays, right? What happened and got you to where you are today in yesterday isn't going to help you get to tomorrow. So you're going to have to change. I don't know about you, but I have the iPhone 13. We've talked about this. We change, we adapt, and you have to move on, and you have to do those types of things. Like, we have to be willing to embrace change to be great leaders. They encourage a culture of learning that encourages a culture of experimentation, open-mindedness, creativity, and really it fosters this resilience within a team. Like, if you can change and move and change and move and change and move, you're going to build this resilience with the team to go, hey, no matter what's thrown our way, we're going to be able to make it. The ones that I think made it really through COVID were the ones that just were okay embracing change. To go hey, as of today, this is what we're doing. Tomorrow it may not be that. We might have to change. We might have to do something else. How do you embrace change, Adam?
I think that's the key thing for me is embracing healthy change too, because I can get on the flip side of things. I'm a big vision, big picture guy, and I don't mind change. And so I'm like, yes, this sounds great. Let's do this and just burn the rest of it to the ground. And I need to get on the other side of that a little bit too, be a little bit more a little more brakes in some areas. I know guys are heavy gas, heavy brakes. So I think it's a both and to having healthy change. And it's like you said, man, we've been where we in our Central Park location this is our third different location that we've been in. We were online for one point longer than we were meeting in person.
Not including my basement, not including the outside, not including the bar.
And so it's just that resilience builds up in it, and the more you go through healthy change, the easier you feel. It's not that it's never going to be easy, right? It's going to be hard every time.
100%. And you don't want to change all the time because you can really burn out your people.
Yes.
But you have to be willing to embrace the change, right?
Absolutely.
You don't need to change your mission statement every year.
Right.
You don't need to change your vision statement every year. You know, but embrace the fact that goes, okay, if we're doing this, by the way, even if you have a mission and vision, when you reach that mission and vision, if you believe God is big enough to help you reach your mission and vision, then you're going to have to change and have another one, right? And so you got to know your community. Your communities are changing, by the way.
100%.
I mean, Denver looks totally different than it did
10 years ago.
So we can't do, if if you do the same things and expect different results, that's literally the definition of insanity. So
Right.
you got to be willing to change. So
Yeah.
if you want to be a healthy leader, you need to be confident in your abilities. You need to be introspective and understanding your own strengths, your weaknesses, and your emotional triggers. You need to balance the pursuit of excellence and what you're doing. You need to take ownership of your actions and your decisions. And last but certainly not least, Adam, you need to embrace change. I hope these can help you lead to the level that God has called you to lead and elevate the leadership of those around you. Can't wait to hit you up next time and look forward to spending some time talking about leadership and elevating it. See you soon.